Hey guys, and welcome to another tremendulent episode of CTA Live. I am your host, Dave Hurley, and in case we haven't met, I'm the founder of churchtrainingacademy.com, and we are creating a fantastic home for you guys as small and medium-sized churches and church staff and ministers and media team and all you guys. We're creating a home for you guys to come and learn how to use and exploit media and technology and help take the gospel both to the folks inside your church and well beyond the walls of your church. And I am so glad you guys are here today. I am joined by what am I going to call you? My intrepid partner, Mr. Justin Nava.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm glad you're here. We're going to have a lot of fun today. It's going to be great.
Yes, we are. Today, we are going to be talking about pastoral blogs, and should your pastor be blogging? Is your pastor blogging? Is he not blogging? Why isn't your pastor blogging? And the benefits of blogging for both his ministry, aside from the one at your church, as well as your church. So we'll be going over that. And for some reason, I have turned on the countdown, and I need to turn off the countdown. Hang on a sec here. So, Justin, let's talk about this. What are your thoughts? Should a pastor be blogging? Should a church even have a blog, I guess? And then should a pastor have something separate or in conjunction with that? What are your thoughts?
Those are a lot of really good questions. So first, let's start. Everything you do as a church or even as a pastor, you have to start with the why. So before you even look at a blog, you have to answer the question, why do you want to start a blog? And once you have that question, you might get your answer on whether or not you should have one or not. So do you want one to preach another sermon in the week? Do you want one to share what's going on in the church? Do you want one to build relationships? And then when you answer that question, you need to also ask the question, who is it for? Is it for people in your church? Is it for people outside of your church? And what topic do you want to cover? Do you want to expand upon your sermons? Do you want to, again, preach a separate sermon? Do you want it to be like a devotional? Do you want to build relationships with it? Do you want to show behind the scenes stuff? Or do you want to cover things that aren't part of your church at all? So maybe you're a pastor, but you're also very, very passionate about, let's say, homeless children. Maybe your town is really notorious for having a large homeless children percentage. So you want to blog about that. Well, that may be suited for your church's blog. However, if your church has a different focus, that's not saying that you won't help or that you don't support that initiative to make that number smaller for homeless children. But maybe it's better suited for a separate, just a different blog that's not part of the church website. So there's a lot of questions you have to do, but really it all comes down to the why. Why do you want to start a blog? So the other reason you should, if you decide that may be a hindrance, the other reason maybe you shouldn't start a blog is if you can't do it consistent.
Right.
It's kind of like if I walk into Walmart on February 2nd and I see Christmas stuff up. Not because they keep pushing it back every year, like there's already Christmas stuff at Hobby Lobby, but it's because they've left it open and they haven't cleared the shelves. I mean, that's a retail sin, keeping your Christmas stuff up too late. So, when someone comes to your website and they see you haven't blogged since Christmas, well, what happened? Did you not care? Maybe I go back even further and I notice you blogged twice in December, once in November, and then you didn't even say anything till July.
Just the fact that you don't come and play very often removes your relevance from their mind.
Exactly. So why would I invest time in you when you don't consistently invest time in the platform, in the blog? Sure. So you got to know your why first. And once you find out your why, really ask the question, will a blog support that? If I want to start a blog to create relationships, but I find out the people I want to create relationships with don't read blogs, well, then blog isn't the answer. And then if I don't have the time to consistently do it, maybe summer's pretty light and you think I'm going to start a blog, but then the fall kicks in and you're like, oh man, I haven't posted in weeks. If you can proactively know that that's going to be an issue, then your time may be better invested somewhere else for the summer. Saying that, though, I think a blog is a great way to help your church reach into the community, to speak into the community. And also, you do have value in that, too, for your own church, because it's going to increase your search engine optimization. You're putting out content. You're providing value for your members and for your community. You're answering questions. So I think if you can, absolutely, it's a great idea. And then from there, we can answer the question of, should it be a pastor blog separately on a separate site, or should it be the church's blog?
Right.
And then we can go into that. But Dave, do you have anything to add
Yeah.
before we go into that?
Yeah,
question?
I do. I do. One of the things that I think every church needs to be doing is well, first off, you need to realize that you're a media company, and I've said this a bunch of times, and I'll say it again, and you'll hear it from me all the time. You're a media company, church, whether you know it or not. Okay. And just because you decide we don't want a podcast or we don't want a live stream or something like that, then what you are is a failed media company, and I can guarantee you that your membership is going to dwindle off, because you will have folks leave, you will have folks die, and if you don't have new folks coming in because they can't find you, then they don't know you're there. Last 2 or 3 churches, I didn't go driving around and go, hey, there's a beautiful church. Let's write down their address and maybe we'll come here on Sunday. I got on Google and I looked for them. I talked to the people around me and said, where do you go to church? Or talked to my friends, where are you guys going to church? And then, well, is the pastor any good? And they said, yeah, check it out. And they sent me a link to one of the services or something. So your church is a media company. And in it, understanding that, I think every church should have a blog, period. And what that is, if nothing else, besides the pages on your website that are, showing who the church staff is, showing examples of the ministry, maybe having some videos of, the youth event or, other stuff like that that showcase the culture of your church should, every service, every piece of content that you create, live event, as we talk about on Sunday, if you're recording that, if you are, whether it's audio or video or both or whatever, that should be published as a blog post along with the sermon notes or the outline that the pastor has, because most pastors sit down and scratch out an outline. Get somebody to type that out if he doesn't, or take what he has and kind of trim it up a little bit so that those items are listed there, because you're writing these notes down in church as you're sitting there watching or participating in the worship service, right? The other person who is watching this 3 weeks from now, if you have those notes there for them, that is beneficial for them to join in on that current study, okay? And then if he has slides, you can use something like SlideShare and put those things in there as well. And you're providing the information that was displayed during the live event. Besides just a video or an audio version, you now have other stuff. You can put in the links to Bible Gateway so they can look up the scripture, whatever. All those things should be categorized and put out as a blog post. And then on top of that, the question that Justin is asking is other things, whether pastors have had a pastoral letter that goes out in, the first page of the bulletin, or as an insert to the bulletin, or once a week or once a month in the newsletter or whatever that gets mailed out. Some of that content is already being written. So looking at a way to make that into a blog post and be published on the website, that's a way that you can take what you're already doing and start getting it out there and increase your search engine relevance and your exposure and stuff. And one of the things that we've learned over the years is the more stuff you put out on a regular basis, the more Google says, hey, these people are important. So let's be sure to give them in the search results when someone says something that's related to something that these guys have. So those are my initial thoughts right there. So take it away.
Yeah. So absolutely, a great way to repurpose your sermon is to do a blog where you put it basically in text form, because we live stream, we post replays. You may be doing all that, but no one's going to sit down and watch for 40 minutes. But they may read for 5 to 10 minutes. Your biggest point. If you break it down like that, they may be able to consume the content that way and be spoken to that way. And like you said, Google likes it when you're relevant, when you stay relevant, when you stay consistent. Google rewards that. And so even just repurposing your sermon, transcribing it out into written form can be a huge bonus and benefit, a bonefit for your church website. And one of the things that I highly recommend, because it does take some time. So there's 2 ways to do this. One, the free way is find a volunteer who maybe doesn't like serving on the front lines, maybe doesn't like the front house view, being in front of people. Someone like me who isn't called to teach, who fumbles around with things, but I'm great behind the scenes. Find someone like that you can plug in and say, hey, you can serve this church. You can, if they're already a Christian, you can serve the kingdom by just taking an hour and a half, or however long, if they type, hopefully faster. Um, take our sermons and basically write them out. If you have the
Transcribe them.
recording available on
Mhm.
Sunday, it's a great Sunday afternoon activity while everyone's napping and you don't nap. Or you can do it Monday, Monday evening after everything's calmed down. Do a couple of do like 1 point a day, and then you'll have it ready by Wednesday to post. So you
Right.
can do like a midweek post for your website. The paid way, you can go to a website called rev.com. It is, it does cost money, but you give it to them, and then I think they have a 24-hour turnaround. They'll transcribe it and get it right back to you. That's the most expensive site, but they also are the most accurate.
Right.
There is another one I will have to find right now because I don't have it off the top of my head, but they do it a little bit. They do it a little bit cheaper, and I'll find it and put a link in the notes. But that's an easy way. Now, the way that I prefer, if you have the time to consistently pour into the blog, is to actually use your blog to build relationships with your community.
Yeah.
Now, we talk about this with social media, but you can just do this with the blog, is to basically have the pastor or the church show how they're living what we're preaching. So the pastor can write a blog post simply, I had this conversation with a family today. You don't have to wait till Sunday or wait till an appropriate sermon to share that story. You can share it next week. You can share it this week, and talk about, a discussion you had where someone in the community brought up this concern, and where the Bible fits in with that. We're not here to discuss the right or wrong answer for it, but we can use it as a tool. Is, we had the event, and the racism is a very hot topic right now, and that may not fit in with your Sunday service. But if it is a pain point for your church, that they need answers, or they want answers, or they're looking for answers, or if that's a point in your community where you feel that you're called to service them and witness to them in that way, a blog post is a great way to do that without sacrificing what you already have planned on Sundays. You can write a post where you point to scripture and sit on your foundation. So what you can build community that way, you can build relationships that way, but really just share what you're doing. If you believe that God reveals to lay ministers or lay people just as much as the ministers, then they can be a part of that as well. Have them write what God's doing in their life, sharing what's going on in there, tell stories of what's going on in there. If you don't have a camera, or if you can't get a recording time, have someone just write their story down. Sure. And that's a blog post. So it doesn't have to just be the pastor. It can be the church blog where everyone's, you submitting content for you to post on a weekly basis, and tell stories that way. And what that does is when Joe down the street goes looking for church websites or for churches to visit, he's going to go to the websites first. He can actually see that this church is doing something. It's not a, hey, come join us at 11 and here's all the great things that we do. It's more of, we're actual real people. We're doing real work, and we're actually practicing what we preach. So that's kind of what I enjoy seeing. And Jordan mentioned, you want to have a blog post in the can in case you can't, pastors out in a conference or on vacation. So no blog post this week. Well, you can have a church member or a staff member write for that week. So it doesn't have to just be the pastor.
Right.
Now, ideally, you have like 4, you're writing 4 ahead of time. And in case something happens, you have one ready to go. But I really enjoy that, because what you want to do is you want to show your community, we're real people. We're practicing what we preach, and here's some stories you can share in longer form written content. You absolutely want to share those stories on social media. You want to share them as pull quotes on your website. But for the people in your community, if you have those people that enjoy reading, if you live in a college town, you have a lot of academics in town, a longer form blog post may be what they want. So just share what's going on in your life. Someone may not watch a 10-minute video, but they'll read 1,000-word blog post. So it's just another way to put content out there. And that's what I enjoy. And that's what I like seeing. And I see churches being rewarded for that. A great church blog is newspring.cc, New Spring Church. They have a fantastic blog where they take real life current issues that people are questions that people are asking, issues that are happening in the community, and they write blog posts about it. And then those blog posts are shared out by everyone in the church, and then in turn shared out by everyone in the community. And that's great for the church brand, because people know, if I'm having an issue with my child, New Spring is the place I can go, because they are knowledgeable. They've built authority, what we call it in the marketing world, by writing blogs that are relevant to people.
And that's that's one of the things that we talk about with you and I've had these discussions, and I know I've talked with the audience about it, about why you'd want to be on multiple platforms, when it comes to publishing. And when I say publishing, broadcasting, all of that, that's all the same thing when I'm talking about. So we're publishing video content, we're broadcasting video content, we're publishing written content, whatever. So I use those terms interchangeably, guys. So don't think I'm just talking text here. But when we're publishing content, um, one of the things that you want to do is you want to be on multiple platforms um, to some degree. Now, there is logic out there. There is thought process in the marketing world, in the business world, that you need to be everywhere. You don't need to be everywhere. Okay. What you need to do is have someplace besides your church or website that is a social focus. Okay. And it may be that your pastor has a social focus. Okay. On Facebook. And so your pastor is blogging and writing these things and then taking snippets and doing a Facebook post out of it, or 2 or 3 Facebook posts, and then linking to the full article, doing things like that. Your youth pastor may be focusing on Instagram because kids are all over Instagram. Okay. And then your worship leader may be focusing on Twitter. And so he focuses on Twitter, and he also focuses the church content through the church's Twitter account. You see what I'm saying? So the church can, quote unquote, be everywhere. However, the individuals in there are focusing on one social platform. Now, in doing that, we talk about why you would want to publish your video to YouTube, as well as have a video podcast, as well as have an audio podcast, maybe have it on in Facebook Watch as well. The reason that you'd want to do that is because when people are searching for things like how to deal with a problem teenager, then your church's content can be the answer to that question. Just like Newspring, is that right? Newspring.cc is becoming an authority in certain areas. When people search for a question, what does the Bible say? What do I do with my kid who's on drugs or something? They are providing an answer because they are continually discussing that subject or other relevant subjects, and they have become authorities. So this all plays into that. Now, as a complement to this discussion, we're talking about it from a church's perspective. I also encourage pastors to be doing this on their own. Okay. Depending on the church, religion, sect, whatever you want to call it, that you are, pastors are placed or called in different ways. Some churches, denominations will send a pastor to a location. Others will do like we did, where we send a team out to start researching and praying about it, and then we narrow it down, and then we call this guy to come and preach for a little bit, and then we decide, hey, we want you to be our pastor. Regardless, there are times when a pastor may be in between churches, or maybe searching for a new church, or may take time away from the pastorate for a season, and then start to come back into it. Okay, they ebb and flow in their careers just like we do. Okay, I encourage all pastors to have a blog, to have their own publishing platform, their own brand, if you will, because you may only be at a given church for a short amount of time. Now, you may be lucky and be the pastor of this church for 25 years, or you may be there for 3 years. Regardless, other people out there who are looking for you or want to find you, and they may not know it, need to be able to find you separate from your church. Okay, so one of the things that's always been a frustration point for me is when a church has 3 years of services and Bible studies and all this sort of stuff, podcast episodes and all the stuff that they've published because they've had this pastor for 3 or 4 years, whatever. Then he moves on to another church and they take all that content down. And it's like, what are you doing? That guy was a part of your church life. Okay. Now, I mean, unless the guy is just a complete moral reprobate and you find out he's a child molester or some weird, and you really need to purge him from the memory of your church and from the public persona, public page of your church, don't do that. Because the content, the things that he's done, he spoke and the word did not return void. So having that content out there, people can still, the Bible study he did on Paul's first missionary journey is still relevant. So have that there. You know what I'm saying? In the meantime, he himself, assuming he's not a reprobate, and we don't want to promote him, he needs to have copies of all that sort of stuff published on his as well, so that he has an archive and a resource for people who are researching him can come and say, yes, this is the guy we want, because look at this history that he has. And if you're a pastor, this is also a great way for you to start building up content if you're thinking about writing a book, or if you're writing books around the series and subjects you have. Anyway, those are my thoughts on that. Back to you, Mr. Justin.
Yeah. So what we've kind of been talking about was church blogs. Spinning it around to pastor's blog, as Dave said, it's a great way. In my opinion, if you have just one passion that is completely separate from what your church is doing. So maybe you have a passion for single moms. You don't want to. How can I say this? You don't want to disproportionately focus your church blog on single moms. You want your church blog to be focused on people that are in your community, whereas the single moms, they may be nationwide. So that's a great way to make a separate blog, a pastor's blog, to where you can minister and focus on one particular audience.
Because if the focus is on single moms, like you say, like we were talking about last week, where folks are looking for which the church, you don't put your mission statement up there, or you don't put something so niched and specific that they say, well, I'm not a single mom, so that's not my church. You wouldn't want to drive a family away who could minister like crazy in your church and be ministered to like crazy in your church. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah, and that's if it's completely off base of what your church's mission is, right? Or what your goal is for your church website. Now, if your blog is about local events, I honestly think that should be on that should be your church blog. Your church blog should be about local community events, because that's just going to bring more people to experience what we call brand, experience your church.
It helps infuse your church in the community, so where we're a part of the community, not separate from the community.
Exactly. That's one way we can return to being part of the center pillar of community in your city. So when you have a pastor blog, just remember though, you are still a representative of your church,
right?
Even if you have a separate pastor blog. So I would encourage you, if you do have separate values of your church, if your church, which it's going to be rare, but if you make a statement as the church, you should not make the opposite statement on your personal blog.
Right.
It's the same way we kind of treat social media, or at least should treat your social media. You are a representative of your church. Of course, we're all representatives of Christ. We all belong to Christ, and we represent that everywhere. But at the same time, if you preach one thing on your church and then you preach another thing, a separate thing, opposite thing on your personal blog, those conflicts are going to come out, and that is going to be a disaster. Yeah. That eliminates all authority you've ever had. So make sure that those ideals line up.
It's that reminds me. It's like when I was a kid growing up, we had a car dealership, had a Chevy and Oldsmobile dealership. And so it would, my grandfather and my father my dad always drove a Corvette, and my grandfather always drove, a really nice Oldsmobile or something like that. If my dad was tearing around town in a Mustang, then that would have taken all credibility away from sports car sales at our dealership, and maybe all credibility from the dealership as well, because my dad would not be driving his own product. So same idea.
Absolutely. So to walk away from this, let's focus on what to do to walk away from this. First of all, if you already have a blog, do you have a consistent schedule? Now, it doesn't have to be weekly. There are many successful blogs, even out in the business world, the business to business world, where we expect consistency. They write 2 posts a month. They know on the first day of the month, they write one, and then on the 15th or the third week, they write another. That's okay. If you're not repurposing your sermons in written form yet, I know we're not, because I just haven't found a person willing to do the transcribing, and we don't have the budget for it yet. But if you just want to do 1 or 2 a month, that's fine. Be consistent with that. If you've paused it, I want you to really reflect on, is this accomplishing my goal? There's a really funny Babylon Bee article. If you don't know Babylon Bee, it's kind of like The Onion. And if you don't know The Onion, it's a parody website. They create fake articles based on relevant events. And there's one article that Babylon Bee did. It's satire. It says the headline is "Pastor Laborers All Weekend on Church Blog. Approximately 4 people will end up reading." and I'll link it down below. And it's just a play on, the pastor spent hours and hours and hours writing this 2,500 word article on our sour suffering and his sweet sovereignty, and putting everything into it. And only 4 people were going to read it. Probably because he didn't know who he was writing it for, or it's another sermon, which people don't want another sermon. We want education and entertainment, or sometimes edutainment. And it's kind of a play on words, but really understand, is this going to be an actual investment for you? Is this going to be an actual ministry? We've all been in situations where people come up to us as leaders and pastors where they say, hey, I really want to start this ministry, and they're really excited. And then 3 weeks later, you're like, hey, whatever happened to this? Like, you had 4 people come on the first day, and now it's just you and a friend. And they're like, yeah, we really kind of just, it's, bleh. You don't want your blog to be like that. You want to have an actual plan. So if you're thinking about starting a blog, if this motivated you, like, yes, I know what my community needs to hear. I know what they'll eat up in written word. I know I want to do the transcribing. I want to start a blog post. Set yourself a goal to just do it for 3 months straight. If you're doing like one a week, maybe just do it for 8 weeks, and then reevaluate. Okay, is this really not worth my time, but is this really, doing what I want it to do? Is the right people reading it? Does our church know to share it? Is it taking up too much of my time? If you're having to cancel counseling appointments to write a blog, then maybe you need to reevaluate whether or not you have time to do it. Or should I bring someone else in to help? We're kind of planning, me and Dave are going to alternate our blog. So instead of me having to write 4 a month, I can write 2 and Dave can write 2.
Right.
That's benefits of partnering up. So maybe you say, okay, well, I'll do on the first week, the youth pastor will do one on the second week, or you'll transcribe the first week, you'll transcribe the second week, you'll transcribe the third week. First, if you're going to start, set a plan that I am going to do this, and I am not going to stop until I get to this point, 8 weeks out, 12 weeks out. And then at that point, reevaluate. Is it accomplishing what I want? Am I speaking to the right people? Does the church know about it to share about it? Really evaluate, is this worth my time? And you can just be upfront with that on your first blog. Hey, we're doing an experiment. We're going to see how it goes. Comment below if you think this is on point. If you think this is lit, as the kids say, as we say. Make a plan and stick to it, and then look back on it and see what worked, what didn't work, and just iterate on that. Keep making small changes. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to blow up overnight. That just doesn't happen. 1 in a million times that happens. So don't expect it to happen to you. Just be consistent, be great at it, and know who you're talking to, know where they are and how they're going to read it, and iterate, review back, and just think, is this going to be worth it? And again, if you're already doing it and you haven't actually looked back at it, just look back at it. How much time is it taking? Is it worth it? Is it doing what you want it to do? And then again, iterate, make changes. And those small changes over time are going to build up into big changes.
Yeah, what it looks like when you first started is maybe not what it's going to look like down the road, and that's okay. That speaks to the mindset of, we're not going to do it until we can do it right. Okay, put that mindset away. I mean, it's one thing, if you're trying to plan your Christmas pageant, and it's you're going to do it 4 nights a week, and it's it's going to be a big deal for the whole community and stuff. Yeah, don't bite off more than you can chew with something like that. But starting a blog, starting a live stream, starting a podcast, adding Facebook live streaming, throughout the course of the week, doing things like that, doesn't have to be perfect. Get it started, let it be genuine, and then pivot and grow. Is there anything else, my friend?
No, that's all I got. That's all I got for today.
Okay, you're laughing. Why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing. I'm smiling because I'm kind of humbled that Adam McLaughlin is in here. I consume so much of his content. It's kind of crazy that he's now watching what we're doing.
Really? That is awesome. That is awesome. Hi, Adam. Hi, I'm Dave. Nice to meet you. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys, for watching. I'm so humbled. If you have any further questions about this, if there's something that brought up a question and we didn't have time to answer it today, just leave a comment down below. I know Adam asked a question. I'm going to get back with him on that. Leave a comment down below and we'll answer it. We'll answer it for you.
Absolutely. And guys, do not forget, if you are thinking about live streaming, considering live streaming, want to add live streaming in one way or another to your ministry, to go to easylivestreaming.com. That is how you guys can see what is out there and get some ideas, as well as get some links to some of the equipment and stuff like that could help you get going in a little bit smoother way. Also, guys, we are going to be launching our site here. Our site. We're going to be launching our membership portal basically here next week. So this is also a good way for you to get into our email system so that you're able to get notified and you're able to get access to things like flash pricing and things like that as we roll out new products and new ideas and things like that. So we want you guys to be informed. So get the guide, learn how to do it, and then reach out to us.
You're going to get a lot. So get that easylivestreaming.com, get that free resource. That's going to put you on our mailing list. You know how this works, right? You give us your email, you get the free resource. We're going to tell you when it launches. Also, just for you guys who are getting in early, who are getting in before Monday, when we launch, you're going to have, we already talked about, you're going to be part of the input on what courses we're going to do first. We are launching with a library first, but the next courses we make in the coming months are going to be dependent on what you say.
Right.
So if you want to have a say on what we cover next, absolutely get on that mailing list. And as another bonus, totally free, if you get the Easy Live Streaming and you're part of our launching list, I'm going to give you a free church website audit. It's a rescue audit. I'm going to give you the things that are working against you on your website, the things that are causing people to bounce out. We're going to talk about how to fix those, and I'm going to bring those to your attention. And so you'll be able to correct those issues. That's normally like $97, but for you guys, for being in early, it's going to be absolutely free. So get on that, easylivestreaming.com.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to say hi in the chat room and go check out easylivestreaming.com, grab the guide, and all the stuff that you're learning here and the things that you're picking up. Go use it to change the world, okay? Thanks, guys. Bye.